He didn't just kill. He collected. When investigators finally broke into the home of 39-year-old Donovan Welles, what they found would scar even the most hardened detectives. Hidden behind false walls, locked drawers, and beneath loose floorboards were pieces, literal and symbolic, of his victims. A charm bracelet, a child's shoelace, a severed braid. To Donovan, they weren't just trophies. They were sacred reminders, markers of conquest, echoes of control. But what drives a man to kill and to keep? Welcome back to True Crime Hub, where today we dive deep into the disturbed psyche of a man who turned murder into a ritual and memory into possession. This is the story of Donovan Welles, the killer who took trophies. Like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime cases that peel back the layers of darkness. Now, let's get into it. Donovan Welles looked ordinary. Too ordinary. A tax consultant by trade and a quiet suburban neighbor by reputation, no one suspected the horrors buried beneath his surface. Colleagues described him as meticulous and polite. Neighbors thought him reserved but helpful. But behind the white picket fence and the pressed suits was a man boiling within a chaos, a man hiding a compulsion so sinister, it would take over a decade to uncover. It started small. A fascination with crime scene photos in high school. An internship at a morgue where he was once caught alone too long with a victim's personal effects. Police would later discover he'd stolen a pair of earrings. Even then, it was a clue no one picked up on. Donovan's childhood revealed subtle yet disturbing patterns. His mother, Judith, died of cancer when he was 10. His father, a distant man, retreated into alcoholism. Left alone in a large, empty house, Donovan developed peculiar rituals. He'd spend hours arranging his mother's perfume bottles by color and scent, whispering stories to her framed photograph. School records showed a bright but solitary child, one teacher noting he seemed to live inside his head. The Welles family home became a psychological tomb, a place that blurred grief and obsession. Judith's room remained untouched. Donovan would sneak in nightly, curling up on her bed, clutching her scarf, inhaling her fading scent. It was his first trophy. As he grew, the boundaries between memory, grief, and control began to dissolve. He started keeping trinkets from acquaintances, borrowed pens, hair ties, even receipts. Each item carried an association, a thread linking him to others. But to Donovan, it wasn't connection. It was possession. In 2008, 23-year-old Clara Jennings was reported missing after leaving her late-night shift at a bookstore. Her body was discovered 6 days later in a shallow creek. There were no signs of sexual assault. Her purse and phone were missing. But something else was gone, her locket. It seemed insignificant. Until the next victim, 3 months later, Samantha Long, a nursing student, also strangled, also missing her charm bracelet. And then a third, a fourth, a fifth. Each woman strangled. Each body found posed. Each missing a deeply personal item. Donovan operated with surgical precision. He kept a planner, disguised as a work ledger, where he tracked victims' routines. He noted their walking routes, what time they left work, who they spoke with. It was his hunting log. Later investigators discovered an eerie pattern. Donovan always chose his victims near bodies of water. Streams, lakes, even decorative fountains. A forensic psychologist later theorized this stemmed from his mother's death. Her ashes were scattered at Lake Meadowview, a location not far from several of the crime scenes. Each kill, each trophy, was a distorted act of mourning. Donovan didn't stalk his victims randomly. He chose locations with precision: coffee shops, college campuses, night classes. He studied their habits. He knew which ones walked home alone. He wasn't just collecting souvenirs. He was collecting stories. He had a photographic memory and a methodical brain. He would blend into his environment, taking night classes just to sit behind his target, volunteering at libraries, attending yoga classes with forged IDs. His car, an unassuming silver sedan, had a hidden compartment beneath the trunk mat. Inside, gloves, zip ties, chloroform, and a velvet pouch to hold whatever he took from his victims. He would strike silently, swiftly, often disabling street cameras by using a custom laser pointer to scramble the feed. He was a ghost. One particularly disturbing case involved 19-year-old Lauren Wilcox, a journalism major. Her death marked the first time Donovan kept 2 trophies, a bloodstained notebook page and a pair of headphones. He later wrote in his private journal, "She spoke of wanting to be remembered. Now she always will be." It was an anonymous tip, never publicly released, that led police to Donovan Welles. The tip came from a former flame who'd dated him briefly. She'd noticed his fixation on death, his constant need to catalog memories, and, most chilling, his locked basement. When police obtained a warrant, what they found was grotesque. Behind a padlocked utility room, police uncovered a memory chamber. On display, framed photos he'd secretly taken of his victims. A carefully catalogued list, with each name written in his neat cursive, some with dates, others with locations. And the trophies. Over 24 of them. Some chilling. A pink child's sock. A pair of glasses. A blood-stained hairbrush. One detective vomited on the spot. Another wept. And the most disturbing part, he kept audio tapes, recordings of their last moments. Whispered pleas. Subs. Silence. Each shelf was organized by victim. Color-coded. Labeled. Lit by soft lamps. It wasn't a trophy room. It was a shrine. Donovan wasn't insane. He was strategic. Forensic psychologists diagnosed him with obsessive-compulsive personality disorder layered with deep narcissism and violent sadism. But more than that, he believed the trophies kept him from needing to kill again. Each one was like a drug, a temporary high. And when it faded, the hunger returned. He viewed the world as transient, people as temporary. But his trophies, eternal. He journaled obsessively, writing fictionalized retellings of each murder, often casting himself as a guardian freeing women from pain. It was delusion, cloaked in ritual. Experts said he showed signs of early trauma, likely from a fractured relationship with his mother. She died when he was 10. His room remained untouched in her home until her death, filled with dolls, pictures, and personal trinkets. It seemed Donovan was trying to recreate that emotional archive with his victims. In therapy sessions post-arrest, he showed no remorse, only fascination with being analyzed. He asked if his collection would be preserved as evidence and if it would be displayed. The media dubbed him the collector. Courtrooms overflowed with journalists, survivors' families, and psychological experts. Prosecutors painted a picture of a man obsessed with domination, not just over life, but over memory. The trial revealed more than the public had expected. Video footage, journal entries, audio tapes, and victims' families had to sit through it all. He pleaded not guilty by reason of mental defect. But the jury saw the tapes, the lists, the organization, the calm demeanor, and most chilling, the smirk he gave when his trophies were displayed. He was found guilty on 19 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. He was sent to Blackstone Supermax, where he's under 24-hour surveillance. But even there, he's found ways to control. He trades art made of food dye for extra paper, so he can keep writing. Donovan's case changed how law enforcement approaches trophy-taking killers. New databases now include missing personal items in victim profiles. Behavioral analysts are trained to detect subtle trophy patterns. And most importantly, victims' families found new ways to connect through shared grief, turning sorrow into advocacy. One mother, whose daughter's charm bracelet was found in Donovan's home, started a foundation to raise awareness of behavioral red flags in stalking cases. Survivors of stalking and near-miss abductions from Donovan's stalking logs were later identified. They now give talks at universities and police academies. Donovan wanted to keep memories frozen. But now, his legacy fuels action. Trophy killers aren't just murderers. They are archivists of their own horror. They preserve pain. They worship memory. Donovan Welles built a museum of control. But in doing so, he exposed the psychological need to not just kill, but to own. What do these killers teach us about human darkness? And how do we protect the vulnerable before they become part of someone else's collection? If this story disturbed you, share it. If it moved you, talk about it. Awareness saves lives. Subscribe to True Crime Hub for more stories that go beneath the surface. And remember, monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes, they just look like neighbors. White right pointing backhand index if you or someone you know has been followed, harassed, or is missing a personal item under suspicious circumstances. Report it. You never know what piece might be part of a bigger pattern. Bell, like, comment, and subscribe to True Crime Hub for more chilling cases and in-depth psychological profiles. Move a camera, and if you want us to cover another case involving trophy killers or forensic psychology, drop it in the comments below. Stay safe. Stay curious. Stay aware. True Crime Hub.